Okay, so let's tackle read aloud and get some teaching points in for at least the first week. So we're talking January 5th through the 9th. So one of the things that is assessed on Pivot in A is RL 2.2, which is retelling folktales from varying cultures. So one of the reasons why we can start with this is because we've already talked about how to retell a story. So now we're kind of spiraling back to that.
Yep.
But in the middle of that, we've also talked about folktales in fables and everything else when we've been talking about theme. So now the other piece that we're hitting is from varying cultures. So obviously read aloud would be a good point to bring this in because we have the time to introduce the text that the students need to understand. And so I'm thinking using some text that we have and kind of pulling in another standard too. We can kind of combine these as well. Chapter, scenes, plays, things like that. So keep that in mind as we're doing it. I'm thinking the major one that kind of comes up to me is Little Red Riding Hood and then Lon Po Po.
Right.
And so Little Red Riding Hood, the kids already have some schema for that story. So we don't need to waste time necessarily right now rereading it. We'll just have them on the first day. We'll introduce Lon Po Po. And what about a teaching point, something like readers basically understand that the same story can be written in different cultures.
Ways,
in different
cultures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll expose them to, did you put Lon Po Po on that? Okay, yeah. So let's put Lon Po Po and we'll introduce that on Monday.
Okay.
And at the beginning, I'm kind of envisioning sitting them down and saying, boys and girls, not even giving them the other text that it kind of goes with. But boys and girls, I have a story for you today. I want you to listen and see if you can think about what this story reminds you of. Does it remind you of a story you already know? Right.
And see if they come up with
and
it
see if they get it.
themselves.
And so I imagine that this read aloud will not look the same as a normal read aloud where we stop every so often and split it between 2 to 3 days. I would want that whole story done by Monday.
Right.
You can still have them stop and jot. You can still, but maybe not as many Post-its or as many times to turn and talk.
Right.
You want to make sure that book is done on Monday. So by Monday, they will have heard Lon Po Po.
Right.
And hopefully at the very end, they've connected it to Little Red Riding Hood. But even if they didn't, that'd be a great springboard for Tuesday. And say, boys and girls, what did yesterday's story Lon Po Po remind you of? Or maybe even just coming right out and saying it if they didn't understand from a Post-it note. And then why not bringing in one of our other standards that's also assessed, which would be RL 3.1. So can you stop? Sorry.